Hi, so thank you for joining me in the supplement to the message for August the 22nd. I do promise to be brief. I thought it'd be worth just noticing that Paul had founded the church in Corinth and stayed there about a year and a half, roughly the same period as the COVID restrictions in the UK, to give you a sense of that timing. We learn that from Luke's book that we call Acts of the Apostles. So Paul had started the church there, remained there for a while, but actually that's not very long, not long enough to ensure that in a place where there's never been a Christian before, that you can leave behind a Christian church with sufficient depth of understanding of the theology. Just a different things will happen if that depth is absent. You won't necessarily be conscious that's why they're happening. So when the depth of theology is absent, other things will drive the life of the church, and it will become competitive. It will become full of silly agendas that need to be kicked into touch, and it will go to pot a bit. And that's what was happening at Corinth. They just weren't ready to be left alone, not really. Anyway, Paul had two sources of information to make him write this letter. It wasn't his first letter to them. It's his second, or maybe more than that. Not sure. He had received a letter from them asking for guidance on some practicalities and on some deeper theology. So he's responding to that letter. But he's also received some visitors, maybe the people who carried the letter, but maybe not, from a woman called Chloe's household. So she seems to have been running a cell within the church in her home, maybe a little cell group or something, not quite sure. But anyway, some people from her household have arrived and Paul has met with them. And from them, he's learned that the Corinthian church is getting a bit divided up and chasing the wrong things. So he writes this letter that we have, and that we can quarry so many good things as God's word to us now from this great letter. I like the fact that there's a word, an English word that appears here, which I think is it's a verse 7, and it goes like this: "Now to each one the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good." Now that statement almost sums up the entire chapter 12. To each person the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the elevation of that person? No. To show that that person is more spiritual than anybody else? No. To show that that person is less than somebody else? No. The only reason the Spirit is this manifestation is given is for the common good. So to each person, something is given from the Spirit for the benefit of the entire community of the church, and indeed the church's work, as we noticed in the main message. The term manifestation is an interesting one. I quite like it. The Greek word that Paul used in writing to the Corinthian church is derived from the shining of a lamp. It's about the light that shines from an energy source. And so when I think of it, I think, yes, so what is happening is that the God's Spirit is shining out through each person within the church, absolutely everybody, in some way or other. Okay, so just take that and love it and enjoy it, because it means you, and it means everybody else as well. God's Spirit is in some sense manifesting God's self, some sense shining out through you to others. I find that an amazing thought, that should be happening through me, but it's happening through all of us, as the Spirit determines, not because we are becoming wonderful people, but because the Spirit is at work. It means that a church is a charismatic gathering as well as a traditional gathering. In other words, we're founded in this tradition that I referred to, 3,000 years old, that sacred assemblies have been happening. 2,000 of those years we've been doing it as Christian sacred assemblies with the sacrifice of Christ as the centre. But it's not just keeping an old tradition alive for 2,000, 3,000 years. It is a dynamic, current activity of God's Spirit that created the universe and that energizes us in the church to be the living community for Jesus and to be able to do the things we do because we form this corporate one body community sufficiently diverse that we can bring a fantastic range of gifts, personalities, characteristics, forms of service, forms of action together, and the result is absolutely beautiful at its best. It is really beautiful at its best. Anyway, enough. There's heaps more, of course, in 1 Corinthians 12, as there is in the entire section 11 to 14. But it's time for me to wrap that up. So God bless you, and I hope you have a really good week.